There used to be a joke running throughout the college football landscape, and it's still there in some semblance, but it's don't lose to food. And that was because Rice sat towards the bottom of whatever conference they were a part of. And I'm here to tell you, I think that's no longer the case. Mike Bloomgren has done a phenomenal job with this program. They return a ton of talent, especially defensively, from last season, and they're looking to continue to climb that ladder in the American Athletic Conference. Can they be a sneaky team and push for a spot in the conference title game? You're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. I want to welcome you to my channel and welcome you to prediction season. We are so close to wrapping it up. I want to thank you guys for all your support for prediction season so far. If you're a fan of a Power 4 team, you have a video up on my channel. And please continue to watch my group of 5 predictions. And thank you for watching this video and all my other videos. It really does help support the channel in more ways than you can even imagine. And if you are as big of a college football nerd as I am, you're going to want to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know what I have to say during the college football season as well. But really, any way you interact with the channel helps to support it, whether that's liking, commenting, sharing, or any other way that I've already mentioned so far, even things that I haven't mentioned so far. Again, just interacting with the channel helps support it in many, many ways, and I appreciate each and every one of you for what you do to help support this channel. And with all that out of the way, we can now talk about the Rice Owls in 2024. How do we do that? Well, we'll take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the defense, and at the end of the video, we'll go through the Rice football schedule and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. But I do have a couple more things before we do start that I do want to let you guys know about, because right over here at the top of the screen here will be the stats a team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And of course, for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. Let's dive on into talking about this offense here under Mike Bloomgren in 2024 and in 2023. Well, it saw some really good and really bad things. It finally saw the emergence of JT Daniels. And no, he did not absolutely light the world on fire with his quarterback play, but he probably had one of his better seasons that he's had throughout his career. And yes, you could say his career was a disappointment. People expected higher things of JT Daniels. He was a really highly recruited player and just sort of fell off the face of the earth, right? Like, JT Daniels still at the end of the day was a very, very solid quarterback that has a lot of really good talent, that has a lot of really good talent, a lot of really good things in his repertoire. I don't know why I can't talk today, but JT Daniels will no longer be playing college football. He has graduated last season. Again, probably one of the best, at least statistically, throughout his career. 2,443 yards, 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on 63% completion percentage. Now, he's had 2,000-yard seasons before. You go back to 2018, he had a 2,600-yard season, so it wasn't a career high or anything like that, but the touchdown to interception ratio was finally there. The completion percentage sure wasn't as high as you would have liked, but overall, you did get some really good things out of the quarterback position from JT Daniels, and you will be missing him here in 2024. However, you will, or I guess not however, but I guess that means you will have a new starting quarterback in 2024, and it could be AJ Paget, and it could be Chase Jenkins, 2 guys who return here to this room from last season. Paget did throw 117 passes last year, and again, hopefully I'm saying that last name right. I apologize if I'm not. 721 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 6 picks. And then getting Chase Jenkins back here as well, a guy that was a wide receiver, now will kind of convert into a quarterback, 13 of 19 for 100 yards last season. I don't think it'll be either of those 2 guys. In fact, I think, without a shadow of a doubt, it's going to end up being E.J. Warner, who's a Temple transfer, was an electric freshman in 2022, had still a really good season in 2023. Now, the completion percentage did lower from 2022 to 2023, but the yards went up slightly. He passed for just over 3,000 yards in both of his 2 seasons at Temple. The touchdown interception ratio got better, and you're just looking for all those things to improve here at Rice. He's a guy that's got some really, really good intangibles. Of course, the son of the NFL Hall of Famer Kurt Warner, and E.J. Warner coming in here to this Rice system, I think is going to see some really good things for him. The passing yards could take a step in the right direction. The completion percentage has got to get back up to where he was in 2022, maybe even exceed it. Continue to improve in that touchdown to interception ratio. E.J. Warner's a quarterback I really like. Transfers in conference to Rice. He'll be that starting quarterback for the Owls in 2024. Okay, we're just going to go through pretty much every loss they have in the skill position room because it really is not a whole lot. We're going to start out with the running back room as per usual, and you do lose your second leading rusher from last season, Juma Ottaviano, and hopefully I'm saying that last name right. 326 yards, 4 touchdowns on 92 carries last season, and Ari Broussard will be gone as well. 29 carries for 91 yards last season. You do lose one of your better all-around athletes in the skill position room. Out of the wide receiver room, a former Power 4 quarterback that came over to Rice to play wide receiver. It's Luke McCaffrey. Now he's gone off to the NFL. 71 catches for nearly 1,000 yards, 992 yards to be exact, and 13 touchdowns last season. He really did blossom into quite the wide receiver during his playing time here at Rice, and you'll now see him playing on Sundays alongside his brother Christian, who of course is the star back with the 49ers. Tight end room, you do get Jack Bradley gone, who has since graduated. And Bradley, only 8 catches for 94 yards, but did break the plane to the end zone one time last year, so notable loss of the tight end room to me. And you do lose a guy off the offensive line. Sure, why not? We'll talk about him now as well in Clay Servin. Keep all those names in mind now as we're going to talk about everyone that comes back for this Rice offense here in 2024. Of course, starting out with the running back room, you get your leading rusher back. Dean Connors had 771 yards and 7 touchdowns on 121 carries. That's right around 6.5 yards per carry. Really good back for them last year in a rush game that overall had some inconsistencies last year. Yes, Dean Connors was very good in the times Luke McCaffrey ran. They were very good. Everyone else, kind of pretty lackluster. I talked about Ottaviano leaving. He only had around 3.5 yards per carry. Broussard only had around 3.1 yards per carry, and no other running back really was able to light it up. So you are getting Quentin Jackson and Dalen Alexander back, but it will be Dean Connors leading this room, and Jackson and Alexander probably will be thrusted into the roles of Ottaviano and Broussard played last season. They're also one of the few teams outside of the Armed Force Academy teams that still use fullbacks, so Micah Barnett and Jerron Hargan will be back to play the fullback position for them here in 2024. You also do get a transfer coming in Coleman Bennett that can helpfully provide some good depth to this room. He's over from Bucknell. Wide receiver room, you get a lot of really good pieces back here. Dean Connors was the team's second leading receiver from last season. 43 catches, which was also second on the team. 403 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then beyond him, you just get a lot of really nice talent coming back. Yes, Luke McCaffrey is gone. Yes, Jack Bradley's gone. Pretty much everyone else is back here, guys. Landon Ransom Goals, and hopefully, again, saying that last name right, comes back as the lead wide receiver. And guys not named Luke McCaffrey last season. Among wide receivers, 380 yards and 3 touchdowns last season. You are getting Rawson McNeil back, Braylon Walker, Kobe Campbell. They're all coming back to this team. Get a couple transfers, Graham Walker, and a former Power 4 wide receiver that's kind of bounced around everywhere, hopefully going to find a home here in the Rice Owls, Ty Chakiao Bowman. And again, hopefully I'm saying that last name right there as well. Tight end room, where your leading returning wide receiver in a pass-catching room, not named Dean Connors, is the tight end Bowden Groen. He had 383 yards and 3 touchdowns last season. You are getting Elijah Mojaro and Ethan Powell back to the room as well. And I already talked about Clay Servin, gone off the offensive line due to graduation. Brant Banks, Lavelle Dumont, Ethan Onianwa, again, hopefully saying that last name right, Braden Nutter, Miguel Cedeno, and Weston Kropp will all be coming back, while Spencer Cassell and Chad Lindbergh enter through the portal. Despite what JT Daniels was able to give you, at least statistically, you are getting an upgrade at quarterback in EJ Warner. Now, I'm not saying Warner's more talented than Daniels. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. Both of them are very, very talented players. I do like EJ Warner as a quarterback, though. He's posted back-to-back 3,000-yard seasons. You got some good talent in the wide receiver room. Dean Connors still going to be able to lead this rushing attack. It's just got to be a little more consistent, and Dean Connors is going to need help. Maybe Coleman Bennett's going to help with that. Maybe Jackson or Alexander provide a bigger season than what Ottaviano and Broussard were able to do from a yards per carry perspective last season. Wide receiver and tight end room is going to be solid. You probably want the offensive line to take a step up as well. They allowed 29 sacks last year. You could see that number improve. You could see them do a little bit more to help out this rush game. But overall, find the consistency, and this offense will find itself here under a new quarterback in EJ Warner in 2024. When you take a look at this defense, though, I mean, honestly, guys, pretty solid defense from last season. Yes, there are a ton of things that can be improved here from this defense. But Rice has one of the highest returning production rates out of any defense across the entire country, because to me, there really are only 3 notable losses to this defense. And yes, there are some other depth pieces that transferred out and some other pieces that graduated, so on and so forth. But these 3 guys really were the only notable contributors that I could find from last year's team that will no longer be playing football for the Rice Owls in 2024. So we're just going to run through all 3 of them here right now. DeBraylon Carroll, yeah, he is going to be gone. He is off through the transfer portal and was a very good defensive player last year. 46 tackles, 3.5 sacks, very good defensive lineman, so you will be losing him. No notable losses out of the linebacker room, no notable losses out of the safety room, but you do lose some defensive backs from last year in Trayshawn Devones. Again, hopefully I'm saying that last name right. Led the team with 11 passes defended and tied for the team lead with 2 interceptions last year. You also will be losing Jordan Dunbar as well, who in his own right was a really good player during his time at Rice. Now, did not play last year. I believe, if my knowledge is correct, he may have had an injury problem. I don't know that for sure. I do know that he did redshirt from last season. So we'll go back to what he did in 2022, where he had 25 tackles and led the team with 8 passes defended. Again, those statistics were back from 2022. So you're losing another talented corner that could have provided some really good production out of this the cornerback room here in 2024. But other than that, guys, I mean, you take a look, pretty much everyone else comes back here on this defense. So let's talk about the defensive line first. It does bring in a couple transfers. Michael Daly is coming in here to this team. He's over from BYU, and Charles Luz, hopefully I'm saying that last name right, is over from Dartmouth. But a lot of the bulk of this production here is going to come from returners to this defensive front. Your leading tackler among defensive linemen last year was Coleman Coco, also led the team with 4 sacks, 47 tackles. He's back, as well as Isaiah Floyd, Josh Percy, Blake Bonish, and hopefully saying that last name right, Damon Green, Jordan Campbell, and Michael Larrabee, as well as many other returners that you could mention here, will all be coming back for the Owls defensive front. They're looking to get better here in 2024, get some more sacks. They only got 23 last year, which honestly is still a pretty solid number. And again, that's a sack production as a whole. You probably want to look for that to improve and get this rush defense a little bit better suited here in 2024. Linebacker room, sure. Myron Morrison is back. That's a really big get back because he was the leading tackler, 80 tackles, did have a sack last season as well. You are getting Play Wyatt back here as well. Now, Rice does play a position, trying to find out what they call it here. They play the Viper position, which is kind of a hybrid linebacker safety, but usually a heavier set player. So that's why I'm going with them in the linebacker position. Play Wyatt is one of them, and he was phenomenal for the team last season. I believe third leading tackler. I'll fact check that. No, second leading tackler. Had 79 tackles, had a sack, 6 passes defended. Really good player, and some more talent comes back as well. Chris Conte, another top 5 tackler that comes back. You are getting DJ Arkansas, Cheek Anigbogu, and Andrew all back to this linebacking room. Defensive backs, let's talk about again. This does not include the Viper position. All those players on the depth chart will be listed under the linebackers. Sean Fresh is back, and Fresh was the team's 5th leading tackler last year. 3rd on the team in pass defended with 750 tackles. Did have a sack last season as well. Lamont Narciss, and again, hopefully saying that last name right, he's back. Max Ahoia and Jamarian Clark will all be back here to this defensive back room. In the cornerback facet, in the safety room, you do return guys like Gabriel Taylor, Jonathan Jean, Tyson Flowers, Davion Hook, and Marcus Williams. Taylor last season, 8 passes defended, 2 interceptions. Again, tied with Devones for that team lead in picks last season. And the team's third leading tackler is the biggest get back in that safety room. And much like their defensive counterparts, no notable losses out of the special teams room. And hey, kickers are people too. We got to show them some love. Connor Hunt back to do the punting. Tim Horn back to do the kicking. And it's going to make for what I imagine is going to be an improved defensive unit here in 2024. Now, when you take a look at this defensive talent returning as a whole, I think there really is not a whole lot of excuses as to why this defense does not get better. I mean, yes, Carroll, Devones, and Dunbar are all very substantial losses to this defense, but they improve in more ways than I don't really know what I'm trying to say there, but they just improve in a lot of ways with a lot of the returning talent that they have coming back. And I see really no reason why this Rice team does not get better here in 2024, making me think that, look, this is a Rice team that's going to have some really solid pieces this year, but I do think that their schedule makes them one of the more difficult teams to predict in the American Athletic this year. And fair warning, this schedule prediction is going to go everywhere. There are some games that Rice should probably win that I think they're going to lose. Some games that they're probably going to lose that I think that they're going to win. So on and so forth. Let's just dive on into it. Any game at home will be underlined, while any game on the road is in italics or that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think the Owls are going to be able to win. Any game in yellow is a close competitive game, but I still see the Owls coming out on top and any game in red is a loss. I do think they start out the season 2-0 here. You have to play 3 in-state teams here to start out your non-conference play. It starts out with a game against the Sam Houston Bearcats, and it's a game that overall I think Sam Houston is going to see their improvements this season as they continue to adjust to the FBS level, but they're not as talented as Rice. Again, EJ Warner's got some really, really good weapons. The defense should see its improvements from last year, and again, it was not a bad defense at all last season. It was still a pretty darn good defense that I just think is going to end up seeing its improvements this season with as much returning talent as it has. It'll start with the win against Sam Houston, and then you should be able to beat Texas Southern there as well. That should just be able to be an FCS level team. That, again, all things considered, you should be able to pick up the win there in week 2. So now you move on to your third and final in-state non-conference team, and it's against the Power 4 side in the Houston Cougars. Now, Houston is probably going to see their struggles this season. Now, that's not to say they don't have talent. Willie Fritz is coming over from Tulane to be that head coach, and Houston is still going to be a fairly competitive team in the Big 12 Conference, I feel. Yes, I don't think that's going to lead to many wins for the Cougars this season, as Willie Fritz has to try to adjust, and the Cougar program and players that return have to try to adjust to that level as well. But they're bringing in some talented transfers, and Houston, I do think, is going to be able to beat Rice this season. I do like what Willie Fritz is as a head coach. He's familiar with this Rice program. He's familiar with Mike Bloomgren, and I think all that is going to help Houston to a win there at home against the Rice Owls. So a road loss for Rice to end this portion of non-conference play. They have a non-conference game later in their schedule. Army used to be a non-conference game, but now they have joined the American Athletic as the 14th member institution here, and Army is going to be a very physical team this year, and I think Rice is going to sort of struggle with some of these more physical defenses that they are going to play. I think the offensive line is going to struggle with physicality. I don't think the run game is going to be as successful. I think getting pressure in the face of EJ Warner is especially what hurt him at Temple and what led him to throw all the interceptions and make the mistakes, and Army's going to be a very physical defense this season. They usually are a very physical defense. They return a lot of good defensive pieces from last year, a lot of good returning offensive talent there as well. But overall, I just think that physicality level favors the Army Black Knights. They have that game at home, and I think they're going to be able to beat Rice there in week 4. Now, Charlotte, I don't think is going to provide the same physicality level, even though I still think Biff Poggy's group sees their somewhat improvements this season. Charlotte is still not a team that I love quite yet. I think they're going to make their improvements in ways this season, but Biff Poggy's group has a long way to go. Rice should be able to beat Charlotte there at home in week 5. Then this one is probably going to end up surprising some people. So they get a game at home against UTSA in week 7. Now, UTSA loses a lot of talent off of last year's team, most notably in the quarterback who had been there for what seemed like forever. He was probably collecting Social Security. He was there for so long. Bad joke. My apologies. Frank Harris is now gone. And with him, some really, really good pieces leave. Some really good wide receivers leave. Zachary Franklin and Joshua Cephas are both gone. You are going to be looking to overturn some of those defensive pieces from last season as well. And overall, guys, just some really good talent does leave UTSA this season. But UTSA should still be very talented this year. Owen McCowan is there at quarterback. They still got some really good wide receiver pieces. Good piece on the offensive line. Kavorian Barnes is back to be the running back. Still some good defensive players come back. And yes, most notably, you do lose Trey Moore off that defensive line from last year. This is just a game that I sort of have a feeling about. UTSA still very well may end up being the more physical team here, but I think UTSA is going to wind up winning this, or not UTSA. I think Rice is going to end up winning this game. I guess the only way I can sit here and justify that prediction is the fact that, look, when you lose people as talented as Frank Harris and some of the wide receiver weapons that they did lose, as well as Trey Moore, there are going to be some guys playing some bigger roles that weren't playing as big of a role as they were last season, and I think that's going to cost UTSA 1 or 2 games that they maybe would have won last season. And look, Rice has a lot of returning production. They're still going to be a talented team. EJ Warner can absolutely light up that UTSA secondary with the amount of weapons he has. This is the Rice defense that was pretty good last season, returns pretty much everyone, is going to see their improvements this year, and they got this game at home. Call me crazy, but I think UTSA's, or I think Rice, I keep saying UTSA. I think Rice is going to end up winning that game against their in-state foe in the UTSA Roadrunners. But then I think they get cold here towards the back half of the stretch. They start out 4-2, looking like a good season for Rice. I do think they're going to go drop this road game though to the Tulane Green Wave. Yes, Michael Pratt is gone. Yes, you do lose a lot of talent in the wide receiver room. You lose some really good pieces defensively there as well. But hiring John Summerall, I think, was a great move. You're getting Ty Thompson to play quarterback for you. Mekhi Hughes is back. Ton of talented wide receiver pieces. Some really good defensive pieces in through the portal, especially in that defensive backfield. And overall, I think Tulane's still going to be one of the most talented teams in the American Athletic this season. So Rice does lose that one on the road. I do think they pick up a road win, though, against the UConn Huskies. Now, this one I could really go back and forth on because I don't think UConn is going to be a bad team this year by any regards. I don't know what I'm trying to say by that. I just don't think UConn is going to be a very bad team this year. I think they're going to be a pretty solid side that could definitely push to get into a bowl game this season. You get Nick Evers coming in from the portal at quarterback. You get some really good wide receiver pieces, defense stacked up on transfers. But I still think Rice, with the improvements on defense with EJ Warner, they're going to be able to outmuscle the Huskies, and they win that one there in week 9. They do have to play the Navy midshipmen, and again, with these armed forces teams, with these very physical defenses, and with Navy shifting their offensive profile a little bit this season, I like the matchup advantage. I like the physicality advantage that Navy possesses over Rice. Already talked a little bit about that with Army, so I'm not going to go much more in depth here, but the physicality level that Navy defense takes over, they win the game there against Rice. And then a road game against Memphis. I don't think this one needs much explanation. Memphis has Seth Hennigan coming back and a lot of speed. They should be able to beat the Owls there in week 11, Friday game at home. Then you enter your second bye week of the season before you have to go on the road to play the UAB Blazers. Now you need one more win here to get into a bowl game here in 2024. And I think they get it right here against the UAB Blazers. UAB will see their improvements from last season, but I still don't love Trent Dilfer as a head coach. They got to get some consistency things figured out offensively and defensively. Overall, a solid team, but I still think Rice is going to end up winning that game there on the road. So they clinch a bowl spot before they, again, just have to play a really talented team in the South Florida Bulls. You're getting a lot of really good talent coming back to that team. They'll be one of the better sides in the American Athletic. And I think even though Rice has this one at home, South Florida is going to win that one. So 6-6 is what I got for Rice. Again, this is a very tough schedule. You got some really tough games at home. You have to play probably what are going to end up being the top 4 teams in the conference, maybe even top 5 when you throw Army in there. It's a very tough schedule, but guys, this is a team that sees their improvements on defense. EJ Warner coming in, I think, is a good move. I still got him going back to a bowl game this year, but I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder, and we'll talk about the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders in my next video. Goodbye.